Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, wherever in the world you are, and joining us for this 22nd session of the World Universities Summit, hosted by the Jindal Global University, the Jindal Global Center, the G20, and part of the G20 Summit in India that is going to be held this year. We have a fantastic and an excellent session coming up, and we have some very distinguished panelists. I'm going to take a minute to introduce them to you. We have Dr. Tobias Andreasson, who is an adjunct associate professor at the in social innovation education at CQ University. Right? We also are joined by Dr. Yoshiko Ishioka, who is currently, she's a PhD in human sciences from Osaka University and currently an associate professor at the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. We're also joined by Dr. Takehiko Uemura. Dr. Uemura is currently a professor at the School of International Liberal Arts, Yokohama City University in Japan. And finally, we have Dr. Tatiana Belousova, who is an assistant professor at the Jindal School of International Affairs, OP Jindal Global University. Well, like I said, the topic today is breaking silos, right? The need for innovative practices in school and higher education to promote interdisciplinarity, right? So what is this about? You know, the world today is full of complex and multifaceted wicked problems, to the extent that it is even difficult for us to define these problems. What is also interesting is that these problems cannot be realistically formulated within the traditional boundaries of disciplines. Like we can think of climate change, we can think of poverty, we can think of global pandemics, we can think of access to healthcare, quality education. These are just some of these problems, right? And we have failed, the interesting thing is we have failed to solve these through the usual piecemeal Band-Aid based solutions. We know for a fact that these problems, these wicked problems, require holistic solutions that can only emerge through collaborative understanding between experts from different disciplines. Now, universities are at the cutting edge of research and are storehouses and generators of knowledge in a diverse domain. Right? And what they need to do is to play a critical role in helping the world solve such problems. More breakthroughs, we believe, can emerge from interdisciplinary research as opposed to when we are confined to silos and bounded education. You know, I'm always saying in my own classrooms, the problems of the world do not come with a label attached to them, but who can solve them. So what's interesting is it has to come together with a lot of people coming together to solve the problems of the world. Now, the interesting thing is, despite this understanding, right, we often see universities still structured within traditional realms of disciplines. Even most degrees awarded today, right, do not promote interdisciplinary teaching and learning. Indeed, the very idea of the kind of research we do is still guided by what I would like to call 19th century ideals of a unified subjectivity, which is actually going to go ahead and do research. What universities need to do, therefore, is to promote interdisciplinary teaching and learning. In fact, not only at the university level, I believe we need to go further down, right, to the school level and start focusing on the interdisciplinary nature of learning and education. Now, each institution representative in this panel would have experiences concerning interdisciplinary teaching and research, either within their present or their previous or past institutions, or within their national education system. We're hoping that this panel will be able to pull their collective experience and shed some light on these issues. What we're going to do is give each panelist about 5 to 6 minutes in an opening statement, right? And then we will go into a question-answer format. And we will reserve the last 5 to 10 minutes for some audience-led questions. The order in which I would like you to give your opening remarks is as follows. We will start with Dr. Tobias, then we'll go to Dr. Tatiana, then Dr. Yoshiko, and then finally Dr. Takehiko will end with you in your opening statement. Over to you, Dr. Tobias.
Thank you, Professor. It's great to be here. It's very exciting to see colleagues from all across the world. I have the last 20 years worked across academia, several faculties, departments. I've taught different subjects and I've worked in consulting and designed social innovations and supported system change, both with people in the for-profit and for-purpose sector. And I'm currently with PwC Australia while being an adjunct associate professor. So I've got a very strong view that considering the complexities, exactly what we heard, and the interdependencies within the system that we live, that we need to be interdisciplinary, and not just interdisciplinary, even transdisciplinary, be able to think and use different disciplines in our own practice. And I had randomly an interesting experience the other day that was quite telling. I was in a meeting with quite senior people, and it was a meeting focused on sustainability, nature, and climate change. And then and someone said, because of this growing pressure on businesses, big businesses, to reduce the carbon emission and become what they call nature positive, people have suggested to this person that ecologists would become in high demand. And it seems logical. For example, UNEP has written that finance flows for nature will need to more than double to $384 billion by 2025. So there's a lot of opportunities here. However, the person that then pointed this out said that many of the ecologists that they worked with didn't know anything about business. And they didn't know anything about businesses' supply and value chains. So because of that, they are seen as not very helpful because they operate in a particular disciplinary silo. So even though this is just one perspective, one example, as it captures some of the problems with higher education, I think that they produce very competent specialists, and sometimes that's very needed. But if they cannot operate, if these specialists cannot operate in this interdisciplinary world that we are facing, they may not necessarily be able to use their expertise in areas that are most impactful, which is, of course, a shame. So this type of stuff is something I've been pushing for quite a few years at CQU. In 2020, I co-authored a piece for the Stanford Social Innovation Review, where we laid all these out and pointed out that CQU have very top-down support for this type of thinking. So in 2017, we included a graduate attribute that was called Social Innovation Mindset. And that set us up and paved the way, so to speak, for at least trying to develop curriculum across the courses where social innovation thinking was embedded and included. So it's something I gave a TEDx talk about this as well. And that all led to eventually developing the social innovation education strategy that we had at university. And part of that was to ensure that students are not just operating in silos, that they are able to apply systems thinking, that they are experienced and understand how UN sustainable development goals relate to their discipline and how they can play a part in actually trying to solve those. So all of this progressed, and it's really important that it does have that foundation and structure from the university and from the top. However, it's not easy. We know that teaching staff don't necessarily have the interdisciplinary experiences themselves. I think the system as well is not always set up for that, and particularly in speaking from Australia. There's limited incentives to be interdisciplinary. And also for us in Australia, CQ University is a very spread out university all over Australia. The geographical distances can make this difficult, even though people are very passionate about it and really want to be interdisciplinary, want to do it, it's difficult. That's my introduction to the topic. I hope that was on time. I'll leave it at that.
No. Thank you so much, Tobias. I think, Tobias, you've raised some very, very interesting things. I know we'll come back to this, when we do the roundtable. Over to you, Tatiana, for your opening statement.
There is no doubt that an interdisciplinary approach is very much relevant at the moment. University leaders constantly emphasize that the world's most pressing problems cannot be solved in a quote-unquote big picture research, can only be solved by a big picture research that is simultaneously based on a variety of disciplines and creates an effect of synergy. Interdisciplinary researchers play a crucial role of knowledge brokers, if you will, in the academic collaboration network. At the same time, I would say that traditional academic disciplines should remain the essential pillars of the interdisciplinary edifice. So on the one hand, we should definitely acknowledge the importance of interdisciplinarity, but on the other hand, realize that it is being built upon strictly defined fundamental disciplines and their respective knowledge. Also, I would like to add that again, given the complexities of our world today, interdisciplinary approach should be perceived almost like a moral responsibility in terms of making contribution and trying to address the challenges of our times. In other words, an interdisciplinary thinking should become a crucial part of the academic culture when everyone understands the need for it and does his or her best to promote it. And also, I would like to emphasize one important aspect here. If we talk about a sustainable development, for example, as one of the interdisciplinary areas, academic institutions themselves, their architecture, physical spaces, their functions, should themselves present a kind of microcosm of sustainability. And just let me conclude, let me make final points here regarding my introductory part. At the moment, we cannot assume that all higher education institutions are ready and willing to embark on interdisciplinary journey. For example, in my country, Russia, there are some scholars who think that these approaches would potentially undermine the solid foundation of the higher education system that was established during the Soviet times. And just perhaps some final thoughts, if I may. The interdisciplinary approach and thinking, in my opinion, are not spread evenly across academic institutions worldwide. Cross-border collaboration is necessary to promote these transformative changes in academia. For example, those institutions who have had successful experiences on this front should be willing to collaborate with other institutions worldwide where such practices have not yet gained momentum. These institutions may not be at the forefront in terms of interdisciplinarity, but they have local experts and indigenous knowledge that can be indispensable for some research projects. I mean, interdisciplinary research projects. So these are my introductory remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tatiana. You raised some important points too. I know I want to come back to these, especially, what is the architecture of interdisciplinarity? I think that's a very, very important thing. And I think, both with Tobias and your points already, we have come to this question of the generalist versus the specialist, the question of discipline versus interdisciplinarity. Thank you already for raising such important questions. I want to go to Yoshiko next. Dr. Yoshiko Ishioka, over to you for your opening statements. Please.
Thank you for the introduction, Professor. I'm very pleased to be here today and to have an opportunity to think about higher education So I have experienced teaching in higher education for 10 years. So now I am currently working at Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities. So as a faculty member, I have worked with students and colleagues to promote interdisciplinary learning and research. So my experience as a teacher and researcher in Japan taught me that interdisciplinarity is essential for higher education in the 21st century. So today I would like to share of my thoughts on this topic. So first, I believe the need to promote interdisciplinarity in higher education is because interdisciplinarity is future-oriented. So as it can help researchers understand and address complex phenomena that cannot be explained by a single discipline. So interdisciplinary research can help identify multiple variables, explore different perspectives, and develop more complex models that better reflect the complexities of the phenomenon being studied. In contrast, individual academic disciplines may sometimes simplify complex phenomena and overlook important factors in order to make them more understandable, which can lead to losing the connection between the research and actual society. So therefore, interdisciplinary research can be an important approach to ensure that research remains relevant and applicable to real-world situations. And moreover, interdisciplinary research can foster stronger connections between academia, society, and industry. So many complex social problems faced by society require input from multiple disciplines, while industry brings unique strategies and techniques to addressing the problems. However, academia can sometimes appear distant from the public and industry due to technical terms, detailed considerations, and limitations. So it's important that academic research in science and humanities is ultimately intended to benefit humanity and society. So therefore, researchers and scholars should be open to collaboration with industry and the public to cultivate seeds and needs for solutions of social problems. So by doing so, they can help bridge the gap between society and industry and contribute to the benefit of humanity and society. On the other hand, based on my experience, one of the challenges when we try to promote interdisciplinary educational program is that higher education is often associated with deepening one's expertise in a particular area. However, students in interdisciplinary learning need to learn about other fields in order to broaden their perspectives and gain a more holistic understanding of complex issues. So this can make students feel like they are not deepening their expertise in any one area. So therefore, we need to consider the structure and curriculum of interdisciplinary programs and the qualifications of the program. And I believe there are several approaches to creating interdisciplinary programs. So for example, taking courses from different schools, doing research with multiple supervisors from different schools or disciplines, and designing a course structured tailored to students and providing some sort of certifications. So according to the aims of the programs, so interdisciplinarity should be designed and the qualification of evaluation should be taken into consideration. So overall, interdisciplinary is necessary to share and create visions for the next 10 or 20 years and address problems for the future. So as we move forward, we must continue to foster interdisciplinary approaches in higher education and collaborate across disciplines and sectors to tackle the challenges of the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yoshiko, for those opening remarks. Again, I think there are several interesting things in what you brought up. I think you brought up the question of future orientation. I know this is very, very important because we really need to understand and we need to think about how do we understand how time structures our discipline. For example, a few years ago, I was at a talk by Professor Arjuna Padurai at Cornell, and he's an anthropologist, and he brought up the point that can anthropology think about the question of future? And, I'm trained as an anthropologist too, and it kind of struck us as a very interesting moment. And we were like, really, as an anthropologist, you really never taught to think about the future. You're constantly preoccupied with what has already happened in a certain sense, right? And I thought that was a very provocative issue. And I think that's maybe something we all need to think about our disciplines constantly, right? So I think it's a very, very important point. I think the second point you brought up, which is also very, very important, is the question of including the public in the formation of knowledge. I think that was a very, very interesting point. And, so when you think of interdisciplinarity, are we also thinking about the different publics that are there and who are part of the formation of knowledge? And finally, I'm just going to take a minute and talk, is this idea of deepening versus broadening, vertical versus horizontal, right? It goes back to the binaries that we have already identified. And so what comes to my mind, and again, something, maybe we'll pick it up later, is how do we understand the shape of knowledge? Do we think knowledge is a river, a pond, a building? What is the shape of knowledge? What is the metaphor that we can understand? So is it like a pond? Do we go deep into it? So what is the shape of knowledge? Maybe this is something also we all need to really, really think about. But thank you so much for that opening statement. Lastly, but definitely not the least, Dr. Takehiko, I'm going to hand it over to you for your opening statement.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this World Summit, and I'm very honored to be with you today. I have no doubt how important interdisciplinary approach is. And today, based on that, I would like to share my experience on this area, interdisciplinary studies, both challenges and some directions to overcome those challenges. I would like to raise 3 points. One is my experience with my institutions, Yokohama City University. We call it YCU as abbreviations. My first point is, unfortunately, it's not easy to institutionalize interdisciplinary approach at university level. In fact, my university, YCU, tried it once, merging 3 faculties. In other words, Faculty of International Cultural Studies, Faculty of Commerce and Economics, and Faculty of Natural Science into one school. That was in 2007, I guess. And we created called International College of Arts and Sciences. However, unfortunately, again, it's failed. There's no substantial merger and there's no substantial interactions among other faculty members. Therefore, the International College was divided into 3 again in 2019. In other words, School of International Liberal Arts, School of International Commerce, and School of Science. So that was my bitter experience in interdisciplinary approach at the university or institutional level. However, I would say it is possible to make it at the research project level. My research area is who and what and how can solve global challenges and creating sustainable global society, and focusing on the issues on global taxations, global basic income, and world government. And it requires, for sure, a variety of experts: international politics, global public policy, international economics and finances, international law, development studies, political philosophy, environmental study, and even experts of information and digital technology too, including artificial intelligence, AI, Web 3.0, blockchain, NFT, and metaverse, etc. And I have already applied the grants in aid for scientific research in Japan, and I was successful to gain 2 project fund. And I am currently applying the 3rd one. So I would say it is possible to promote interdisciplinary research at the project level, but it should go beyond my own institutions. I am doing this project beyond my university and connecting other experts and university professors from different universities. That's the point, I think, both nationally and internationally. And thirdly, I would like to share my experience at the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies in Geneva. I had a sabbatical and spent half a year there. And I was impressed by many things, but one of the most is each floor has a kind of coffee room or salon room with transparent glasses, no wall. So it's very easy and natural to communicate with colleagues of both the same and different field. It's really easy. Just go there and find anyone to talk over coffee or tea. So in that natural way of contacting with each other, I could discuss many things with different field experts, so I can learn a lot from them. So my recommendation in the 3rd point is create this kind of salon type of rooms, both for faculty members and ideally for students too. So this kind of space, I believe, is very critical in promoting interdisciplinary approach. These are some little experience to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Takehiko. That, I think, again, some very interesting points get raised. And in fact, I mean, you know, I am the Dean of the School of Art and Architecture. And incidentally, I'm an anthropologist who's the Dean of the School of Art and Architecture. So I absolutely understand your point about the built environment being a kind of almost a catalyst to allow for this kind of interdisciplinarity, and that's something I know I want to pick up later on in the discussion. I have a question. Maybe I'll begin with you, Dr. Takehiko, because you kind of answered the question that I had for others, but I want to come back. So you gave us an example of what did not work. Right. And this, I would like you to first attempt, and then probably the rest of the panelists. Do you have any examples that did work to whatever degree that it worked? Do you see what I'm saying? Right. A little bit about how much. I know you talked about research, it working in research, but I'm talking at the level of teaching, or maybe at the level of whether it was at a school or maybe it was at a university. Do you have some example of where it worked? So I would begin with you and then open it out to the rest of the panelists, please.
Okay, let me think. In terms of research, yes, as I have experienced, it worked.
But I am talking in terms of teaching, in terms of, yeah, I'll come back to your point of research. I think that's very, very interesting because I want to understand why does it work there and not elsewhere. But please.
Yeah, okay. In terms of teaching, there's one subject called overseas field work. And that's team teaching. It's not taught by myself. It's taught by two professors. And this year, it's quite close though. I did it with a professor of international law. And but I would say that's quite complementary because my area is more politics or political science, but his area is more law oriented. So I think for the student, it was a good learning to learn one issue from political science part and international law aspect. So it's very small interdisciplinary approach, but I would say I just think of this example.
Thank you. I'm just going to open this question up to the rest of the panelists. So maybe Yoshiko, if you can go first, then Tobias, and then Tatiana. Any examples that come to your mind of some degree of success, some degree of experimentation or innovation that has worked, right? To whatever little degree that is. We'll take what we can get at this, kind of. Yoshiko, if you want to go first, and then Tobias, and then Tatiana.
Okay. So from my side, I'd like to share my experience teaching in an interdisciplinary program in Japan. So that program aimed to foster doctoral students with a fusion of humanities and science education and provided opportunities for highly innovative interdisciplinary learning. And I believe one of the program's successful activities involved collaborating with mentors from different industries to propose policies to Japanese ministries and or companies. So aiming to realize their ideal society. So Japan faces a wide range of social problems such as welfare, healthcare, education, agriculture, and more. So, and also aging population and the depopulation. So during this activity to proposing policies, so students discuss social issues with industry members, conducted research and fieldwork, and proposed policies toward relevant ministries and companies. So the challenges for students was to propose solutions that were outside their areas of expertise. So they had to create an idea and a vision for an ideal society and examine feasibility through discussion with various stakeholders related to the topic and conduct surveys. So there is a difficulty, but this approach allowed the student to learn and think independently and gain a broader understanding of the challenges society faces.
Thank you, Yoshiko. Tobias, over to you. Some example.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick, but two examples that I've had experience with. One of them was an extra co-curricular initiative, and I think that tends to potentially be common. That's when some experimentation can happen because you're not bound by the expectations and the systems when it comes to accredited units and so on. So with that one, it was possible to bring a lot of students together from different disciplines during a 3-day period and get them to explore and work with the community organization, and then go through a design process and respond to some of the challenges that they faced, and then present at the end back what they came up with. So because it didn't sit within a specific course, it enabled that freedom, and it was run by not academics, but actually professional staff. But the response from the students were, because there were usually a lot of international students from all over the world, the response was very positive, that they really appreciated the experience, and it really opened up the mind and was transformational. The other quick one that's quite interesting was the collaboration between a theatre academic and a law academic, and they got theatre students to work with the law students and then work with indigenous youth to try to come up and develop videos that could respond to or help them in their interactions with the police. So they had to be informed by the law and all of that, and then they had to work in the community. And that experience as well was quite transformational for the students. They understood that, just to be able to apply their practice, theatre, in that context was quite amazing for them. So they're two little examples.
Thanks, Tobias. There are some interesting commonalities that are emerging, and I'll come to that after I hear from Tatiana. I like the fact that you said it was a design thing that they did. So we'll come back to that point too. All right, Tatiana, over to you.
Thank you. I have a couple of examples on my mind, if I may. First, I would speak from a perspective of the school which I belong to. This is Jindal School of International Affairs. In the year 2021, our school collaborated with the Jindal School of Business and Finance and Jindal School of Art and Architecture. Out of this collaboration, 6 minor programs have come out altogether to the benefits of students from these 3 schools. For example, School of Art and Architecture offers a minor program in urban and community studies to our students, international affairs students, whereas our school offers 3 minor programs to the students of art and architecture. Just to give you some ideas, students of international affairs can learn about anthropology of communities and settlements, development and sustainability, law, governance, and community planning, among other subjects. In my view, there are multiple benefits from such collaborative efforts. First of all, students have an opportunity to step out from the boundaries of their main disciplines and explore new terrains. It is important at the cognitive level of each individual student, but also important for their future academic or professional careers. These interdisciplinary learning experiences increase, no doubt, career opportunities of the students, since they cover a broader range of subjects during their studies. And another interesting example I would like to bring about, I just came across an interesting information about Hokkaido University. One of the good examples would be Hokkaido University's interdisciplinary graduate program known as One Program, quote unquote, One Program for Global Goals. It is taught in English with partner universities in countries in Asia and Europe. These international programs aim to create highly motivated leaders to foster the sustainable development goals who are also sensitive to diverse perspectives. Hokkaido University set up this One Program for Global Goals faculty in April 2022, to be precise, 1 year ago, based on 3 existing main international programs that combine science and technology with social science disciplines. And interestingly, this particular program, One Program for Global Goals, combines 3 international programs. And these programs, they deal with populations, resources, environments, and this is done in collaboration with Asian countries. Then there is another second program, which is called Sustainable Transportation System and Infrastructure. And interestingly, it is carried out with Indian universities and Indian scholars and experts. And the third final program here, it is done in collaboration with countries in Northern Europe, and it is called Northern Environment Expert Education Joint Program. Just a few words here, if I may. The program is led by Japanese and foreign professors in Japan and abroad. For example, through field work, joint laboratory research and discussion, students are encouraged to explore the challenges faced by governments, communities, and other stakeholders in the task of achieving sustainable development goals. And just since some of us are located here in India, I would like to emphasize the importance of this particular program, which is called Sustainable Transportation System and Infrastructure, as it focuses on resilient engineering technologies in railway systems, social infrastructure in India, in collaboration with Indian Institutes of Technology in Hyderabad, Bombay, and Madras. And finally, just a couple of more examples from my own experience. I apologize if perhaps it took me a little bit long, but from my own experience, I teach, for example, in the field of international relations. And international relations, this is academic field which is inherently interdisciplinary. International relations also include, to a certain extent, economics, philosophy, history, and even psychology. In this sense, while creating syllabus, it is not difficult to follow an interdisciplinary approach. For example, when me and my students, when we discuss such concepts as war and peace, we cannot leave behind the beautiful philosophical work of Immanuel Kant and his idea of perpetual peace. This can be true for other subjects as well, but this would require a revision of existing curriculum structures, keeping in mind the question of interdisciplinarity. In terms of cross-elective courses, again, this is from my personal academic experience, these cross-elective courses, they can certainly be considered as an important part of multidisciplinary approach. To foster this, they should be devised in such a way that they become attractive and useful for a wider student cohort. For example, one of the electives I teach is titled The Current Global Order East and West Axis. The students who choose this course are not only from the School of International Affairs, but also from journalism and communication, liberal arts and humanities, and law school. And needless to say, when all the students, when they gather together in one classroom, this is a wonderful platform for them to exchange ideas and to share information coming from their own expertise and their own field. And I think this is hugely to the advantage of all the students involved.
All right. Thank you, Tatiana. I think thank you for bringing up what we are trying to do here at Jindal, and it is actually revealing some interesting things. I've seen students of architecture minoring in international affairs and combining it in ways that we didn't imagine when we started that. So that's kind of interesting what's happening. I agree with you. But what was interesting across the board, what was coming across is that when there is a little bit of a project-oriented learning, right? So, which is the kind of example I think that Tobias gave, Yoshiko gave, and in a certain sense, Dr. Takehiko, it was also implicit when you said that it works for a research project, right? So it would seem that if there's a kind of a project-based learning, we seem to be able to collaborate more, right? Now, I wonder, why is that the case? Why is it the case that when we are all working towards a kind of a project, we think we can collaborate, but when we are teaching what we think are our standard subjects, we don't want to collaborate? Do you see? So in a sense, are we the problem in a certain sense, right? And shifting what we do or what we think is the goal of education in that sense to solving problems, to only be looking at real life problems, to thinking of education as a project-based enterprise Is that the way forward? And can we think, and that is going to bring about interdisciplinarity? I think it is also embedded in the way Tatiana was talking about her interdisciplinary course in a certain sense, right? Which is that, okay, here's the project. How do we understand the question of war and peace, right? Doesn't make a difference which discipline you're from. Let's just try and understand this as a kind of a project kind of thing. So I don't know what is everyone's thought on that. Perhaps we can begin with Tobias, this time with you, and then Dr. Takehiko, then Yoshiko, and then Tatiana, please.
I mean, I do agree. I think that's when I have seen most success. And I think, I mean, it makes sense in a lot of ways, because I think when you work on a project and you have a task, and it's even more, I think, successful if that is provided by someone in the community. So it does have an anchoring to a real situation. Mm-hmm. I think that gives students a really buy-in, and they really will jump into that challenge, as opposed to something that is too abstract or not connected to reality. And the same way that there can be a sense as well, if it's not related to the discipline, that I think someone mentioned that if it doesn't feel like it goes deep enough in their discipline, that they lose something and they don't learn necessarily skills that they will use later. So I think part of the blame is, or part of the responsibility lies with us to explain the importance of jumping into project, but also the importance of be able to work together on projects that may not seem that they are super relevant for your discipline at the first instance. Yeah, that's just quick comments.
No, thank you. Dr. Takehiko, I was wondering what you thought of that.
Yes, I do agree with your summary. The interdisciplinary approach is suitable for project-based research and learning. I would add, maybe the point is many project-based research and learning is for problem solving, drawing visions, more future-oriented approach.
Yes.
So if we can focus on those problem solving, drawing vision, a future-oriented approach, I think we could promote more interdisciplinary learning too.
No, makes perfect sense. If I can shift gears a bit, if this is the way we are understanding, Tobias, you raised an interesting point earlier, but I want Yoshiko and probably Tatiana to reflect on this, is that sometimes, is there enough incentive for us to do this interdisciplinary kind of project-based learning? What can the institutions do to incentivize this, right? I mean, I'm just not talking monetary here. I want us to think beyond that pale. And what can we do to incentivize, let's say, Tatiana, the kind of experiment we are doing between, the international affairs and the architecture students. How can an institution or even those associated institutions, how can we incentivize this? So maybe, Yoshiko, if you could step in and deliberate upon this, and then Tatiana, and then if anybody else wants to, please.
Thank you. Sorry, it's difficult to think about incentives. But I think universities can leverage there a lot of resources and facilities is by collaborating with various stakeholders, such as local government, schools, organizations. So, for example, universities' spaces can accommodate a variety of activities and events, and then which can serve as a hub for interaction between different groups and communities. So these events can be an excellent opportunity for example, students and citizens to visit the campus, learn about various subjects, and communicate with undergraduate students. so which can stimulate their curiosity and interest for the future, including current students and faculty members. So similarly, so university can host a variety of seminars and workshops, and then they come to understand real social problems and phenomena, and then sometimes they come up with new methodologies and solutions. So those can be one of the not an incentive, but
but
some kind of a
about.
benefit.
Yeah. Thank you. Tatiana, very quickly, if I could have some of your thoughts, and then Tobias, very quickly, your thoughts. I have a couple of questions from the audience also I want to take after this. But please, Tatiana, very quickly, and Tobias, very quickly after that.
I think the incentives should come within, because everybody realizes the challenges of we currently experience. And every day we receive the news, what is happening around the globe, water shortage here and there. For example, now new estimates are saying around 2 billion people around the world do not have access to drinking or even running water from the tap. And yesterday there was news that a country like Tunisia, the government has to limit the water supply for its population because there is an acute shortage of it. So this is what I mean, that incentives should come within, given the challenges, given the pressing issues we are facing at the moment. So in my view, there is no escape but to embark on this interdisciplinary journey. I would say that there is even not a choice in front of us. Yeah? We have to be on board, and we have to embrace it, whether we like it or not. Even people with the traditional mindset, who are not that perhaps receptive, to the new trends, but like I said, there is no other option. And then let me bring some interesting examples.
Tatiana, quickly, I want to hear from Tobias. So very quickly, please, very shortly, I want to hear from Tobias on this, and we've got to take a couple of questions from the audience, please.
Well, I think another way to think about it as well is to remove the disincentives. And I think higher education is a very regulated space, and there are rules and regulations around courses and how you get funding for students and so on. And I think a lot of them are causing staff not to do what they think they probably should be doing. So I think that's also a place to start. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's very interesting. So not remove the barriers. That's remove all the disincentives that are there. I think that's a point very well taken, Tobias. Very often, we don't realize that there are actually disincentives at work rather than incentives being there. Professor Takehiko, I have a question from the audience for you. Now, Japan is a leading country in innovative technology and research, right? So how are Japanese universities using technology to promote interdisciplinary learning and interdisciplinarity? Now, what tools and resources are available to educators across the world do you think that they can use for this purpose? And I just want to add one little thing to this. This is especially important considering that over the last 2 years, thanks to COVID, we did suddenly see that a faculty could be completely asynchronous with the student that they were teaching, right? I mean, that was the big takeaway from all the isolation that we did, because suddenly I was having all my colleagues from the United States come in and teach what they wanted in my own class at Jindal, right? So over to you, Professor Takehiko.
Wow, it's a very difficult question to answer. Well, actually, yes, as those who questioned this, Japan is maybe one of the leading companies for innovative technologies. And to what extent Japanese universities are utilizing them, that's what I don't know. But currently, many Japanese universities is introducing, what does it stand for? LMS. Have you ever heard LMS? The system, kind of the management system.
The learning management systems, right?
Yeah, right. And some university uses LMS quite well. For example, one of the challenges for Japanese students is to improve English proficiency. And some university use this LMS to give points. Like if you got more than some score in terms of TOEFL, IELTS, etc., and how many, and in terms of courses you are taking, courses in English you have taken, or how many years you, how many months you study abroad, etc. And by using LMS, students get point, and they will get the point of gold, bronze, silver, and gold, and even some university give some cash based on that. So using learning management system is one of the maybe the technology that Japanese university is currently using. But other than that, I don't have enough answer to this.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. There's one more question, and I'm going to ask everybody in the panel to just spend 1 minute on this question. Right now, let's imagine there are two scenarios. Okay, we could follow either, right? And the first scenario is students take electives from multiple departments, right? The second scenario is faculty members from different departments work together to create interdisciplinary courses. The question is, which approach is more feasible? Which approach do you think is going to be more productive from the point of view of the student, right? So maybe Tatiana, quickly, you first, and then, Dr. Uemura, you, and then Yoshiko, and then finally Tobias. But very quickly, very short, please. We only have a couple of minutes remaining in the panel. Which one would you think?
My quick answer would be both.
Both, okay.
You mentioned that there should be collective efforts to create the
Right.
interdisciplinary curriculum, but
Right.
it can work also when one professor, while creating syllabus, he or she keeps in mind this interdisciplinary aspect.
Right.
And it can cover a broad range of subjects. So this can be applied to a broader range of subjects. And I would say that there is an interdisciplinary value in cross-elective courses, as well as interdisciplinary component within the curriculum structure, like I mentioned already. But as I said before, there are certain academic fields that are inherently interdisciplinary. So in this sense, it doesn't require lots of efforts to create such curriculum, which contains this interdisciplinary component. And I mentioned my field, international relations, which encompasses economics, philosophy, history, psychology, and there should be a wish, a genuine wish, a genuine motivation to incorporate this component into the curriculum.
Right. Thank you so much, Tatiana. Yoshiko, quickly, if you could, and then Tobias, and then we can end with Dr. Takehiko. Quickly, Yoshiko.
Yeah,
Out of these two, which one, both, neither, how would you go?
Yeah, I think both, but if I had to say, I will take the second one.
You will take
So because so simply taking courses across different disciplines may not be sufficient for students to develop interdisciplinary skills.
Okay.
However, programs like self-design majors in one school, so which allow students to combine two more majors based on their interests, can be an effective way to promote interdisciplinary thinking.
Thank you so much. Tobias, very quickly, we've got like 30 seconds left, I think, on the panel, but sorry to put you on the spot, but I was just wondering, please.
I think the first one early on in your education, and then later on, it has to start to blend them together so you can apply them properly.
All right. No, makes sense. I see the logic there. Dr. Takehiko, how would you go?
Yes, my answer is neither one or two. I would say three. Number
Uh-huh.
three, yes. Create the new faculty for interdisciplinary studies. That's
Fantastic.
needed.
Fantastic. I mean, this is wonderful. I know this discussion could go on and on, but unfortunately, folks, we are out of time. I want to thank the panelists for such a lively discussion, and thank you all. It was wonderful having you here. I'm hoping that the audience, got something out of it. I know I did, and we didn't even get to my favorite topic of talking about how the built environment could have promoted interdisciplinary. But thank you all so much. Wonderful having you all. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.